Hello, hello. Hello, dear everyone, and welcome to a new webinar, Amber Academy webinar. This time is a topic on modern production. I am Andrea Motop, Learning and Development Manager in Amber. And as always, I'm your co-host for today, together with Mike Doom, that you will see in a bit. Yay, there he is. Hi, Mike.
Hey.
We're still waiting for people to join, I see, and I'm stalling as always because we have more people joining on the webinar, and we are also live on Facebook, so people are seeing us live there, and we are really happy for us to be able to share with you insights, because the purpose of this project, of this live webinars shared with you guys in Amber Academy, is to spread the know-how in the gaming industry. And today, there is someone that is not a member of Amber, but a very close friend to Amber, Mike Doom, also known as Pagano. I'm pronouncing it right. I hope.
You are.
Great. He's executive producer and game director, has intensive experience in the industry, and mobile free-to-play type of activity is something that is part of his experience. You will be able to learn a lot from Mike today. We are really happy that you joined us, Mike, today, and you want to share your know-how with everyone in the industry. Just before we start, you are able to interact with us, even if this is a webinar and we're the only ones here on the screen. You will be able to interact with us from the Zoom Q&A section. So if you have a question for Mike, we will have some separate moments during the presentation when Mike will just make time for your questions and make time to answer. And if you are on Facebook and basically you don't have access to the Q&A, don't worry. You can also type the questions there in the comments, and we'll take them over into the webinar, and I'll be the one asking Mike all those questions. So don't worry, we'll make sure that as many questions as possible are answered during today. So without further ado, Mike, the stage is yours. Modern production fundamentals. I'm curious. So here, let's see.
Hey everybody. So good to be here. Hey, I'm Mike. I've been making video games now for a bit. Made a whole bunch. I'm going to make a whole bunch more. So time is short. So today I'm going to run through an incredible amount of information. This is a talk that's going to describe what a modern producer is and go through my entire production process to help you become that modern producer. So why don't we get started? Here, let's share my screen. We have questions, a few locations for questions through this entire thing, about 3 of them, and there will be slides that will go into it. All right, so let's get started. So a guide to shipping quality games in today's market. That's what it means to be a modern producer. So who is this modern producer? He sort of looks like this wonderful, handsome gentleman named Josh Valenci. A modern producer. It's someone who is a master of producing not just development, but live operations. From what we've seen with a producer of today, we've largely seen us master production for a one-time download premium space. And as we know today, it's more a free-to-play space, more live operations. So for you to come into this industry, you're going to need to know, or for everyone who's already inside of this industry, which I imagine is a number of you, you need to really understand what it is to be dev and what it is to be live ops, and how am I successful in both arenas. And you as a producer, everyone comes from different backgrounds. So that's where this different forms of DNA, that's me up there, that's kind of what I look like from disciplines. You have to think, well, what are all the different disciplines inside of a game project? What are all the different disciplines that a producer really needs to lead? And those are some of those that are outlined there. So that's what a producer is. Now we're going to run through an entire development project from beginning to end, to live operations, to full on sunset. So here we go. We're going to haul butt through it. So let's kick off. So what do you do when you first kick off a project? First thing to do is you need to set philosophies. Philosophies are the foundation by which you're going to run your team, you're going to run your company, and you're going to be running your project. So for me, when you say you come into my team, here's a few examples. When you come into my team, I like the power of threes. So here's a few different things that I like for you to come into my team. I like for you to be nice, right? Don't be a jerk. Don't be like Steve Jobs, right? Be nice to your fellow man and woman, your fellow person. Have fun when you come to work, because when you come to work and you have fun, you make a better product. It really shows in the games that we make, because we're making fun. And then you have to work hard. We're not just here to play games. We're here to make games, and that's a lot of work, and it's fun work. So that's one sort of mental modality, mental idea that I like for you to come inside of here. And when you're with your team, recommend doing something very similar. Or another idea is, say you come into the team, here's a mental framework for how I like for you to be when coming in. It's when you look at a team, what are they, right? What you're really trying to do is you're coming together as a group to go from point A to point B. And there's three different ideas, I think, in buckets of what people do when you're going from point A to point B as a team. One, there's team DDS. That's team don't do stuff. That's when you're going from point A to point B and you don't really do anything, and it takes longer to go from point A to point B. Or there's team FSU. That's team F stuff up. So that's when someone comes at either good or bad intention. You need to go from point A to point B, but you end up going to point C because they come in and muck it up. That could be an executive giving you weird direction. That could be someone on your team going down the wrong path and working at you and not with you. And then there's team GSD. That's a team that I like you to be, and a team that I like to be. That's going from point A to point B and efficiently as possible to win. But what is point A? What is point B? Well, you as the producer get to define that. What is that? You're defining the play field by which that we're playing in. So you as the producer need to come in with your team and team leader to say, all right, well, this is the overall philosophy by which we're going to conduct ourselves. Now, where are we going to actually operate? So operations are, for example, here's a couple of things that I like to tell my teams are, one, we're making a commercial game, and that's really important. We're not making a passion project here. It is art, but we're making money, right? Or should I say, and we're making money. Embrace the power of the and. So what is that? Well, one, fundamentally, it engages, right? This game is fun. That's the number one thing. You want people to come in and see, you make a game. If this game is not fun, it's not really a game anymore. Or maybe it's just not a fun game. Two, it needs to retain. I want to come back to play this game, right? Mental modality of, this is a commercial game that people want to come in. They want to come back to play. Three, they want to monetize. So I want to spend money on this game. So, and then four, I want to tell my friends about it, acquisition. So that is what I view as what a commercial game is. And then responsibility is just, here's a big details of what I view as responsibilities to make a game actually happen. There's direction, there's operations, there's design. I'm reading it, so apologies if I'm going up and down. Engineering, there's art, there's audio. So there's all these different things that you need to do to make this commercial product. So make sure when you're going into it, knowing what you're going to do. Is this a commercial product? Is this art? Is this something else, right? Which it could be, because we're smart people and we innovate all the time. So set the playing field. From there, you need to phase your workout. So I like to phase work into different chunks because you're going to be operating differently depending upon the phase. And inside of games, I see as three major buckets. One, pre-production. That's where you're ideating. That's where you're figuring out like what you're doing. And so that's prototyping. That's coming up with concept. There's a business case. You're defining what plan is. And there's a lot of iteration there. That's more agile. When you go into full-on production, it's a bit more waterfall with some agile backing to it. So in production, you know what the plan is, and it's executing, getting to launch, getting to that worldwide launch. You're creating playables. You're showing why it's fun. You are, excuse me, you're scaling your project, going from probably pre-production of a few people to dozens, if not hundreds of people, depending upon the project. And you need to be able to scale rapidly. So from there, you're going and you're executing. So think planning, executing, and then live ops. That's maintaining, that's growing. So that is changing from a more waterfall mentality and actually going back into a more agile mentality of you need to continually launch a game. You need to continually launch content. You need to promote every day, every week, every month. And it's a different mentality than actually just getting one major game out. So remember to phase your work. It may look like this, it may look slightly different because as we all know, every game is different and every team is different. So just the big thing to take away with this is make sure you phase your work purposefully to minimize thrash, because if you don't, you start turning into team FSU. Then you need to set your goals and your targets. So you need to be very clear. Just like a video game, you need to telegraph where you're going to go. So you know, like in Mario Brothers, you know that you're going to go from left to right and go from level to level to level, and it's going to be incremental in difficulty. Same thing with the project. Show what the end state is and how you get there. Here's an example of a milestone schedule that I love to use when kicking off a project. It's listing what's the milestone abstractly, right? Really think abstractly of what are all the things I'm going to do. So take, for instance, in prototype that's due in August, we're going to make a VR game that shows core loop, shows the difficulty levels. I can play and lose, right? There's a win and loss state. I'm able to have placeholder content. Outline inside of your document as detailed as you can, and you're thinking about it even before you kick off, right? Actual full production. So this is just detailing out what am I going to do by when. And by having this will give you a foundation for you to make your decisions, because we all know money and time are finite. And so planning backwards from how long you know this should take, 1 year, 5 years for dev, work backwards and know how much time you have to focus on those different phases. So I recommend as you're going through, make sure you detail as much as possible, talk to everybody you can, put real dates, literally put real dates inside of there. So it makes it tangible, and then build in for buffer. I like to usually go about 2x of what everybody tells me, because we all know there's slip, and all the planning in the world is always going to change when you step foot on the battlefield, right? I think that's an old adage. And then as you're going through this, don't just think about development, think live operations. You need to have a backlog. You need to have a roadmap for feature ideas and things that you're going to be doing afterward. And this doesn't necessarily mean you need to design the features then. Figure out, I'm going to have a game that's going to go up to soft launch. Think about the phases. Then I'm going to have a monthly build that's going to have stuff in it. What's that stuff? No idea. Literally no idea. But we know it's going to be fun, and it's going to help retain, and it's going to make people want to spend money and want to tell their friends about it, right? So think about roughly abstractly, how do I create those big milestones going from development through live ops. And you don't need to detail out, say, just side note, you don't need to detail out, say, 20 different updates. I'm going to do an update every month. Just say, I'm going to do an update every month, every week, every quarter. This is roughly what it's going to be: major feature, minor feature, etc. And side note, that's a goal. That's a surfing lark, because I'm a surfer, and that's him surfing in the morning, because you got to set goals to get up in the morning and crush those waves. So what do you do next? Next, now you have a plan. rough plan of attack. You got a whole bunch of people that want to do something. You have to organize. How do you organize? Again, every team is different. You're going to have to look at your DNA, look at your skill chart like we had from slide 2. Who are you? Who's everybody else? Where are your gaps? Are you able to execute on all those different buckets that we know need to happen? Because somebody's going to have to do it. So what I like to do is I like to do a structure like this, which is a cross-functional team with pods. What I've noticed is something like this can scale from one person starting with production, right? So think of this as kind of your root of, okay, I have production who's going to create a game for players. Generally, they need to raise money either from internally, from stakeholders, right? So think of those as your investors, i.e. your executives, your actual people who legitimately put in money if you have a startup, or your directors. So those are the people that are going to be guiding your decisions. Same with partners. You're going to have legal, you're going to have operations, you're going to have all these different partners that are going to help influence what's going on. And you're going to need to be able to talk to them laterally to get information to be able to push it down the chain, right? So think players, partners, stakeholders, give you a whole bunch of inputs based on your design to then direct what you're going to do with your resources. And your resources, I like to view them as in pods, because when we develop, we group off into specific set groups that do different things, i.e. think framework rendering. You're going to be working on game design, iterate from there, that can parallel path, but still work together through the correct merging structure, right? So start it out from the beginning in this idea, because when you get to live operations, you're going to have a live ops pod. Either one person or multiple people are going to do it. And you need to have the mentality of different executional structures. That sounded really evil because that was kind of fun, but you're going to need to have different structures that you're going to operate in. So like a dev pod's not going to operate like a live pod, and possibly a small dev pod may be doing minor features and ARM features, acquisition, retention, monetization features. And then you have major features in dev pod, and they may flip between each other, right? So this allows you to be a bit nimble and moving through. And then what I found over the years, in art and QA laterals throughout your entire vertical pods, or your pod verticals. The reason why is what we found is devs usually stick on there the longest with game designers, right? Artists usually get embedded, but then they rotate in between each one of them. Same with QA. And it's good and healthy to move them as needed. Devs move, but it's a little bit less frequently. So think about live operations from the start and think about scalability. You will get bigger, right? It will get more complex. It will get more expensive with every build that you make. So make sure to plan from the start. So with that, select scalable tools. So just like a wonderful bicycle, which is very scalable because you can go take that everywhere and be wonderful and efficient. Think about your dev tools, right? You have to not just think dev, you have to think project management. How are you putting stuff together? I like Kanban boards and I like sticky notes, right? That's specifically for me. I found that makes my team works really well. But you have to figure out, you as the operations cornerstone and then team cornerstone for setting process. What do you do to make yourself successful? So some people like Jira, some people don't. Usually it's mostly engineers. I see you out there. Artists generally don't like them because it's so complicated and convoluted, but it could be simple. So think about not just that, think about your art and design team. So you're going to need whiteboard, office, or the digital complement of it. You have to think about your sys and DevOps because you have IT, backend, infrastructure, BizOps, right? All these, even though they're not on your dev team, you're going to want to think about a pipeline that's going to be to interact with them, right? So moving on. And very, very important, you got a plan to organize, you know where you're playing at, you have a rough idea of like what the general scope is going to be, how big roughly the project is you're going to be making. You need to create a system of clear communication. I like to talk often, be direct, and I like to champion alignment, but it is different depending upon the location that you're at. Specifically, I've noticed East and West are very different, right? Eastern Bloc is different than West. South America, North America, very different. So take this as a basic structure that I found that kind of works across all of them with slightly different variations depending upon who I'm talking to. So take, for instance, what I like to do is I like to have a fortnightly where I get everybody together. I like to do reporting with everybody every week, like, and have a roll up. So you guys tell me everything that you're doing. I can roll it up to my partners and my stakeholders and my players, right? Because they're the ultimate boss. Hey, what are you doing? Transparency. People like transparency and authenticity. So the more transparent you are, to a degree, right? You don't want to give away everything because we know surprise and delight is an amazing thing. You want to make sure that you're reporting out to everybody. You shouldn't take longer than 15 minutes in daily stand-ups. If you are, you're wasting time. Weekly partner meetings. You got to talk with all your partners, right? There's fortnightly stakeholder meetings. You got to go meet with your investors. Show them what's up. How's everything going? You need to meet with your directs, but not just directs based on business. You're going to want to grow them as well as individuals, right? To make them more efficient and better at their job. Make sure you set aside at least 30 to 60 minutes a month to talk to your employees to figure out together, what are you going to do to be better, right? How are we going to get there? Let's measure it, because remember, in today's world, it's a qualitative and quantitative world. So we want to make sure that you go with the qual of, okay, well, how do you want to get better? Oh, I want to be a better public speaker. Okay, great. That's wonderful. Come back next month. Tell me how you did three different public speaking engagements and tell me how it went. Measure it, right? Always think measure it. I think one of them, it's called STAR. EA has some measurement tools. I think talk to your HR staff. If you don't have HR staff, hit me up. I can point in the right direction. And then lastly, here's an example of a production report that I legitimately think may be the silver bullet to production through a color-coded system. I'm sorry for some of our colorblind people. I'm slightly colorblind. But I think that, going back to it, when you go through and you're doing reporting, make it very clear and concise. Think data to ink ratio. The less that you're typing, the more that you're able to go focus on your project and getting stuff done. So take the time to do it right. Highlight. I like to do the green, yellow, red system. Hey, green. Hey, check out this cool stuff. Share it with everybody. It's super neat. Oh no, yellow. We got to talk about this. Uh-oh, something's going weird. I need your input. Let's have a chat. It can wait. Ain't super high priority. Red. Oh crap, we got to talk. There's like, give me a call. Something went weird. And then you templatize it. So you'll notice engineer background. So I templatize, I abstract lots and lots of things, and I find it's very beneficial. Okay, pausing. We've just went through pre-production. We're going to go to production. QA break.
So guys, if you have questions, now is a really good moment to address any curiosity you have from this first part of the presentation. Mike, we have some comments though, not necessarily a question. Someone sends you appreciation for the insights and opinions regarding the waterfall/agile software development models. So they like it. And they also like the form of risk analysis that you have shared with everyone. And until someone wants to ask something, I do have a curiosity, and I'm really curious because I think that we are all in this right now, even if we like it or not. So we're working remote, most of us. Now, how does this work? Daily stand-ups, everything. Do you have like an experience you can share with us and
absolutely.
Learn from you?
I would say go check out my LinkedIn. One of the producers on our team, one of the senior prods, came up with a really ingenious plan of creating a digital office inside of Discord. Go check out my LinkedIn. I posted about it, I think, a couple of days ago or this week. Way too many posts on LinkedIn. Side note, just do once a week. Way better traction. But they've been able to create a way for the team to feel connected at all times. And largely what it comes down to is you're creating a space for random comms. You're creating a space. So what is that? That's text messages, that's videos, that's IMs, right? Chatter. So they create a space for chatter, right? And create rooms for them to have specific types of chatter, right? For however you want. Some people like to talk about games. Some people like to talk about acquisition. Some people like to talk about design, right? And so we kind of silo those off to go wherever you want to participate, then make it easy for video communication, right? For them to be able to go jump into a room and have a conversation easily, right? Which we all know is actually kind of a double-edged sword right now, because I imagine lots of you are getting fatigued from being on video quite a bit, which is definitely a thing as well, right? So you got to take your breaks. But by and large, it's good to show up, to be in front of people and talk with them on a regular basis, and knowing that you're working nearly at the same time. Set up core hours, right? Set up I generally like to do 10 to 4, right? Because that gives me a good window for people to show up a little bit later in the morning, right? Go get all your stand-ups and everything done with your teams, right? Get your stuff ready. And then later in the day, be able to crunch as you need and do whatever you want. And then largely take Tuesday, Wednesday as work days where nobody really talks. Just show up, be there, but don't schedule meetings, work. Because as we all know, unless you're a lead, right, you have a lot of work to do. And so if you're not working on it, you're doing something wrong. I would say last thing to look at is go look at, it's a fun name, but Super Evil Megacorp. They've published excellent remote first ideas and a guide by which to conduct yourself as a distributed team. I worked in Playfish for a number of years, and it was a game changer for me, because they were the first studio that I've seen to embrace fully remote ideas and practices, where they felt cohesive and together more than an EA, much more than an EA. They did not feel like silos. It felt like, even though the teams were distributed around the world and they had teams in every continent, we all felt as one moving together, right? And so that's where Christian Sagastrate. So go check him out and so he's the guy, Playfish, who did, you're bridging it together. He's the Playfish guy who created Super Evil Megacorp. So wonderful. Some good stuff.
Thanks for the share. And we do have another question from someone here in the audience. How do you convince indie teams that think production lingo and activities are too corporate for them to actually adopt stuff that will help them?
Yeah, it's I guess just check yourself, right? Be open to it. It's you're indie, right? So indie stuff. So I've been indie now 7 years from corporate. And so what I really found is these practices really apply themselves to indie and make me more efficient in my operations. And so I would say, when you're thinking about these things, think of the idea and think about how you update that idea and modify it to work in your work process. And that's the reason why I'm trying to give you really top level ideas to key in on and help develop the processes, because again, every process is different, every team. So I've been on now, I think, about 40 different teams throughout my career. Everyone operates legitimately different, even inside of the organization. So take these ideas as a template and see how they apply to you. And so if you still find resistance in adopting processes, don't push it, right? And I think take a really, really abstract way of looking of it I keep saying abstraction, and I'm sorry, yeah, engineer brain. Think about, I think a really good philosophy to really take heed is work with people, not at them, right? So what does that mean? Some people, everybody's different. Some people are not going to want to use your process. And a lot aren't. They're going to have their own ideas and they want to be heard. So make sure you work together to refine the process, and you're not going to be able to do everything that you want. Compromise. Hey, it's what I've come to find is a lot of it is a democracy, right? So whether we want to or not, more in the West than the East, quite honestly. In the East, it's a little bit more of a royal model. But it's turning more and more west as the world moves on. So, well, hopefully there's it's 10. So, I'm sorry, 10 my time. So we have another 30 minutes left. So I still have quite a bit to run through. So maybe if we pause the questions now and keep moving, and we'll save them for the end. I'll try to go a little bit faster. I'm doing a little bit of rambling.
Okay,
it's weird. Side note: I haven't
go.
sat down and given a presentation before. I'm usually standing up and moving around, so this is really weird for me. And not seeing my audience.
You can still shake your hands and
I can do
everything
that.
like that. Yeah, you can do that.
Which is fun. And side note, this is all my fun art. I always use these presentations for my silly art. So if you enjoy it, hey, let me know, because you know I'm an artist and always love critiques. All right, moving on. So what we're gonna move on to next is dun 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 production. This is actually a game I was pitching at some point, where augmented reality game where you can use your phone to find these gigantic ancient machines around the universe or around the world. So if you look up with an AR camera, you can see this gigantic, sweet looking spaceship. And then you race them. And then it was basically a kart racing game, right? I love kart racing. So I thought that'd be kind of fun. Anyways, so moving on from pre-production. So basically you have an idea, right? You have that idea. And what you just saw right here is me talking about what that game is with a really simple graphic. So think data to ink ratio. How do you communicate what the fun is in the most efficient way, i.e. takes the least amount of your time to really excite everyone? So here's a concept that this is the exact concept that I gave to Turner about an Impractical Jokers game that won us the contract. And notice it's a little bit silly, it's a little bit rinky dink, but here, watch this. So what we're doing here is we're creating a concept of your engaging idea, and you need to answer three things. What is it? Who's it for? What's the audience? And then why is it fun? So here you go. You ready? This is a game called The Wheel of Doom by the Impractical Jokers. Come in and spin the Wheel of Doom. The Jokers pop in, so you can see this is the main menu that goes into, you spin like a Wheel of Doom that gives you a random play. This game is Spoon a Stranger, right? So their whole shtick is they do weird griefing to random people, and they get away with it, and people find it funny. Mostly on the East Coast of America. Wasn't really popular in the West Coast. A little bit, kind of interesting. Go check it out. But yeah, so you spin a wheel, then you need to go choose a target, right? You go choose a target just like in the show, and then then you play a small mini game of spooning a stranger. And this is kind of what the mini game looks like. Comes in, you have to push the buttons at the right time, and there's a meter of anger meter. You can't piss them off too much or you'll lose the game. From there, you get rated by the Jokers based upon how you did, and then you can share off unique content. So notice what I just did there. I went through and I pitched a game concept that showed what is the game, what is the core loop, why is it fun, how does it, and then a whole bunch of other additive. Why does it line up with the brand if you're going for a branded game? What are some of the cool other vectors of why people want to tell their friends about it? And how are they going to do that? So think, how do you create a game concept that you can accurately communicate to your team first, consumers next, right? Well, arguably consumers first, right? So you can actually, that's kind of a good litmus test of, hey, go take your idea and go talk to a consumer and try to sell them on it. And then ultimately your team, so you know what you're doing, right? I found this is one of the cornerstones of my production process to help inform the team of what we're doing in a really efficient way. So from there, we need to create scope. Everybody knows how to create scope, I imagine here. So you create a whole bunch of list of features and all the stuff that you want to do. What I found is it's really beneficial to do two things. You're going to create all these features and they may not make sense for your product. And you're going to be cutting hairs in a lot of gray zone, right? Of, does that really work? Is that better? Does that really fit? So I found these three structures really help me when attacking that problem. One is the vision stack. So this largely comes from EA, right? So this is a derivation of an EA of the X. So think you have a foundational game vision, right? Which is, take for instance, The Sims, play with life, right? You know what the game is, it accurately communicates the essence of your game, the in-between, the feeling, right? So think of this as a qualitative feeling of what you're going to do. And then you're gonna have the quantitative, then you're gonna have the qualitative pillars of, well, what is that game, right? So think 3 major buckets that game is going to be. So play with life. What is it? It's got to be a Sims game. It needs to be, say, it's going to be multiplayer, right? Or we could say free to play, and then insert random other major big thing, right? And then from there, think about your features. Do your features line up with each one of these buckets? Because basically what we're doing with this is using it as a crap filter of, well, man, I really want to make the Sims game a racing game. Oops, nope, wrong, don't put that in there. Or it gets a little bit more deep. I want to create a game. I want to create a mini game inside of my Sims game where we have a progression system that turns into tournaments, that turns into a sports. I have like a sport that I put inside. So I want to put in, I don't know, American football or soccer. There we go. So worldwide football. So we want to put football inside of there, and we create all these games for it. But hey, is it really play with life, right? Is that really a Sims game? Is that good multiplayer? It could fit in multiplayer, but it kind of violates the other one. So use this as a filter to help get rid of stuff. So we're calling stuff. Then from there, articulate what the player is doing second to second, minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day. Literally list it out. Put it inside of a spreadsheet, write a chart, second to second, minute, hour to hour, and be devil's advocate with yourself to see, well, is that really fun? Are players really going to enjoy that? Do they want to do events every quarter, right? Do they want to do tournaments every year? What do they want to see every year? So be devil's advocate with yourself of what features really line up inside of there. And then lastly, I love the 70-20-10 model. So I view everything as an adaptation. And what I found is most large games on Earth follow this model, which is roughly, right? You have a game that's 70% proven. You know what that market is. So the game has, that's your table stakes. So I'm going to make a racing game. It needs to have racing mechanics. That's the 70%. Go look at the market to see what is good about it. Then from there, you need to choose, you have to evolve the product to make it better, right? So a player comes in, ooh, this game is like this, but it's a little bit better. And then you need to put your secret sauce on it. And that's the innovation. You need to put an innovation on your product that players have never seen before in that genre. Case in point, hey, have you played Fortnite? Oh man, it's like PUBG, but it doesn't at the time, right? It doesn't crash, right? It goes kind of everywhere. I can play literally anywhere with my friends, and oh my gosh, they have this crazy building mechanic that totally changed the game. Hey, you guys got to switch over from PUBG over to Fortnite, right? Come check it out. So what we've done there is we've created a positioning statement. Side note, go read the book Positioning. We've created a positioning statement based on our features that we want to position what we want the consumer to think about our game, right? And what does it come down to? I want to play it. Holy crap, why would I go switch from one game to the other? And why would I tell my friends, right? So I'm going to keep reinforcing that. So then from there, you got to make sure the tone works. So tone needs to look real good. So from there, and I'm running out of time. All right, so I'm going to start hammering through a little bit faster. So you need to set the tone. So everybody knows that as you're going through, you need the pretty pictures. You're going to need this early on. And what I really found is the minimum set that I like to work with is here. I like to have a mood board to show just kind of feeling that highlights what's the world, what's the key characters, what are the menu, what's the packaging. Packaging is your digital store. This is what the consumers see. That is what a finalized mock-up is, right? So think finalized mock-ups. Finalized mock-ups are what the game would actually look like with color, right? You can judge upon yourself like how far you want to push that. So take a point, here's one of the finalized mock-ups for some PvP game called True Villains that I was coming up with. Basically, it's not the game, but it gives you a tone of what I'm trying to achieve. Gigantic robots versus weird alien looking things. And oh my gosh, there's a human in there. What does that mean? And there's cool little script on the side and it's in a lava planet, right? And there's aliens flying over. So it gives you an idea and teases what and excites your players. So from here, make sure you create artwork that excites the people who are going to invest, your consumers, and ultimately yourselves. And then don't forget about audio. Everybody totally forgets about audio at the beginning. Always, always, always create your main menu loop and your game loop possibly some VO, possibly some stingers. It's cheap, it's easy. And when you're giving these presentations, just like you probably heard at the beginning of this talk, we put music in there to set the tone. I set the tone to be rock and roll because that's who I am. Awesome. But for inside of your game, what does it feel like, right? Are you creating something that's going to sound like awesome synthwave? Are you going to make something that sounds more 1920s? Are you going to put Baroque, right? What's the tone? And having audio with the visuals will be a gigantic stopgap for you. You don't need to create, hopefully, a prototype or an animated sequence that's really, really deep dive. But if you if you can do it because it does help with the sell for you internally to understand what the game is. So don't forget business, right? You're going to make a fun game, but it needs to retain, it needs to monetize, and you need to acquire, right? It needs to have those behaviors. And when you think about this, ask yourself these questions up here. What's going to make them come back next session? What's going to make them come back tomorrow? What's going to make them come back next week? Are you going to do a little offer for them? Is it going to be a daily reward? Is there something else, right? Think about, is there a battle pass, right? What's going to drive the consumer to come back day over day? And it can be gameplay as well, right? If it's a premium game, what are the gameplay systems that are going to bring players back every day that will make them want to play that game, make them want to spend money on it, right? What are the players going to spend money on, right? And don't think about as just one specific vector, right? Think about a range, a field of monetization and retention and acquisition. Think about, okay, well, I want to get one strong monetization vector in there somewhere. Where is that going to sit? And then what else can that be inside of a range? Case in point, I'm going to create a battle pass. That battle pass is going to be $5 or $10. Oh, should I put in 2 battle passes? Right? Does that make sense for the different consumer? Do I window them at a different time? So think about that critically. And then ultimately, when you're thinking about acquisition, I can't reinforce this enough. Don't just do blind shares. Blind shares do not work. People will not want to share them off. If it is, so generally, what is a share? Haha, that's fun. Oh my God, look what I did. Or haha, that's funny, right? Or, ooh, this is super cool. So think of like the motivations of share. And then you have to think about the audience on the other side. What's going to make them click through, right? What's going to make the receiver want to read it, want to jump after it? So take, for instance, we just launched a wonderful Rambo game with Quick Save with Lionsgate. If they're there, hi, everybody. That we switched from having really, really clever share, right? Really, really clever share images, and added in a tap mechanic that makes people want to compete with each other. So you can tap as fast as possible and share off your friend going, can you do that? Right? So, and then that makes people want to click on it because of the challenge aspect. So, and that was the right for that game. May not be right for your game. Think critically about what's going to make players want to click on it. From there, you're going to need to validate your design with more research, right? If you haven't done research, you got to do it. You really got to do it, because you're going to be jumping into a market generally, unless you're creating a market, but you still got to know who your tangentials are. So think about, how big is the market? What are your installs going to be, right? Like, where are they coming from? That's a big thing. Where are your consumers? Do you have to market to them? So if you're in a free to play, you have to do a UA strategy, right? So you have to do performance marketing. Do you have enough money for that? Otherwise, you need to go on a premium game, say like a console game. You're going to have to embrace influencers and press. Are you going to get there? How are you going to get there? From there, do your top 5 competitor teardowns. What is a teardown? Go look at Deconstructor of Fun. From there, define who your player is. Top 3 player profiles. Who is that? What are their motivations? Why did they play your game? Why do they find it fun? Why do they want to spend? Sometimes you find they're completely divergent, which is kind of nuts, right? We've seen it a few times. So really map out who they are. Why do they play your product? Really understand your community and really understand your press. If you're going to go make a Sims game, if you're going to go make, let's just say if you're going to make a farming game, go play literally every farming game out there. See what table stakes are. See what the market really wants. Because if you spend, I don't know, 12 months on a project and the market, a side note, is continually moving and you don't stay up with that, you are going to create a product that's going to be behind everyone else. Keep that in mind. And also know what press is saying about you, because press does drive installs, especially at the beginning, right? So make sure that press will want to see your game and want to be able to talk about your game. And that's a whole rat hole of a conversation. Okay, you need to forecast what good looks like in this day and age. What does that mean? Not just for the game, but for features. I have a few tools that I'll share off later somehow that are forecasting documents for, well, how do you forecast a game, right? You need to forecast how long are players going to play, right? Like how much, how long, how much are they going to spend, and how many people are they going to tell, right? Because that's going to go, okay, what's my time in session? What's my DAU, MAU? What is my ARPU, ARPDAU, DAC, right? What's my ROAS for acquisition, right? If you have to do, so you go to acquisition, what's my K factor? What's my ROAS? And that will give you an ultimate idea of how much it's going to cost to make, how much you think you're going to make, right? Like how much revenue you're going to make. And that largely will give you a lot of decisions for how you can organize and what you can do and where you should really focus. When you're still in pre-production, you need to prove all of the fun, right? If you're able to do rapid prototypes, we all know this, but oh my gosh, you can do a paper prototype for anything. Solve risk early. Oh crap, I got 13 minutes. All right, going faster. Make a first playable. So when you're doing a first playable, the way that I like to think about it is minutes of fun. So think the first playable is 5 minutes of fun. You can give it to anybody, tested by a whole bunch of people. This is a football game, a VR football game that we just created. Go look it up. It's Lamar Jackson's posting about it, which is wonderful, where you can actually pick up a ball, throw it, and feel like you're really in the field. Test it with a whole bunch of players, right? Make sure, get that feedback, get that playable feeling real good so that when you get to that gate, when you get to that approval process, you're able to then demonstrate why it's fun. Because where you're making interactive software, and by having something that's interactive helps more than any paper that you create. From there, you move on to production. So this one's going to be a bit shorter because everybody here has produced a whole bunch of games, I would imagine. So here's just a few ideas. So as I was saying, make lots of playables. So when you're going through, do your build of, okay, got to go into second playable. You've been approved. You got a whole bunch of money from your last gate from your first playable. Now you need to remap that into production ready code. Don't take a long time to do that. Don't take a year. Right? Take hopefully a few months, if that. Get that build in there so then you can sequence up to, now you got to get to 10 minutes of fun, 30 minutes of fun, 45 minutes of fun, right? If you are not hitting those goals, players are not going to play your game. Side note, discount as needed if you're doing super casual games and hyper casual games, right? From there, think about shipping every 2 weeks. I know everybody here most likely does sprints every 2 weeks. 3 weeks feels a little bit long. 1 week, way too short. Because what you're going to do is you're going to implement for a week. You're going to harden, do feedback. You're going to play it, improve it over the next week, right? And ultimately, you're going to want to get consumer feedback, but you're going to want to move on to the new feature. So you need to get something that is finalized that you can give off to literally everybody. I like to create end user builds from the start to be able to give it to a VIP audience, show it to your friends, show it to your family, make sure they're under NDA for the big projects. Show them, make sure your team is playing it every week and make sure your partners are playing it every week. Send it off into the entire org, get feedback. The more people that are playing it, just like evolution, because what you're doing, you're evolving a product. Go Darwin, he rocks. What you need to do is you have to iterate and you have to evolve. And the only way to do that is by having lots and lots of people. The stronger, you have a stronger feedback pipeline, the more people that are giving you feedback, okay? So make sure you do that. Try to find your core consumer, all of them. From there, keep continuing until it's ready. I like to view alpha, beta, and releases like that. I like to have it as an hour of fun, a day of fun, a month of fun, regardless if it's a premium product or a free-to-play product. For me, if I go buy a game, I want to at least have a month of fun. I want to sit there, be able to come back to it and think around with it and play through it as a month of fun. What is that? Is that 4 hours of gameplay? Is that 20 hours of gameplay? Depends, but think roughly in sort of real time. And then, holy crap, did you remember all those things to put in? Right? Don't forget those. Okay, I'm going to move through the Q&A break. I'm going to pause here. I'm sorry, not pause here because we're running out of time, Andrea. So why don't I just keep plowing through? Let me just get to the live ops because this is some real good stuff. Okay, and then we'll pause for questions. And then sorry everybody, there's a lot here. Okay, cool.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So that's Lloyd Melnick, live ops, always be shipping, right? So now I'm going to get a little bit fiery. Here we go. Live operations is, you ready for the marathon? I hope you are. Do you really understand what live operations are? Do you know what ROADS is? If you don't, go read Lloyd Melnick. Read everything that's on there, because the guy is a sage. He knows more about live operations than you probably do in your pinky, and has built successful businesses time and time again. And he is a sage of this world. Go read that. Okay, so always be shipping. So for anybody who downloads this, I wrote you a poem. So here's a fun little poem. That's Ed. He's awesome. He runs one of EA's game businesses. He does marathons and he kicks butt, because holy crap, this is a marathon, right? But you have to remember, as a marathoner, take your breaks, take your snacks, don't burn out, because you're going to be doing this for 5 years, right? Remember to stretch. Stretching is really key. If you're able to work in personal routines with your team when you're really crunching, to do yoga. I know it sounds silly and I'm a weird California guy, but it does help, because it makes you strong. The stronger you are, the harder you can push, right? And the less that it's going to feel hard to you. Run every morning. You can tell I'm maybe sweating a little bit, because I did a huge bike ride this morning, because it gives you energy. The stronger you are, the more lean muscle mass you have, the more efficient your body will become, the more efficient your brain will become, the more output you'll be able to produce in a shorter amount of time. Okay, so read that poem. It's super fun. Soft launch. Here's what I like to do for soft launch. So think about it. This is rough. So think that you're good at soft launch. Soft launch is going to be either in a free to play. Everybody kind of knows free to play, where it takes a few months to do, if not a few quarters, if not a few years, depending upon who you are and what you're doing. And then think about, in a one-time download game, you're going to be sending this off to a VIP beta audience over and over and over and over and over, and you're going to test all these things. Maybe not acquisition, maybe not monetization, but I think you kind of are through marketing, right? Because hey, do you want to buy this game? Would you tell your friends about it? Net Promoter Score. So these are some of the ideas that I like to follow when running through it. So check those out. And then remember, when you're going through this is fun. That's actually the Santa Monica High School mascot. Why would they do that? Amazing, right? But remember, watch out for riding crispy. That's when you burn out and everything just upsets you. You feel like everything's coming in on you. Take your breaks. Don't ride crispy. But remember, as you're going through, you're going to launch. You're going to need a war room. You're going to need to service your consumer. You're going to need to talk to them all the time, especially in live operations. And watch out when you're launching. Try not to launch on a Thursday or Friday, because who wants to work the weekend? I know I don't. I like to take my breaks and my snacks. From there, you have to pet lots of dogs, of course, because dogs are awesome. But what we're going to be doing is, through live operations, you're going to grow, you're going to sustain, and then it will eventually decline. No game on earth has survived infinity, and yours probably won't either. Plan for every one of the different phases of development and think about what you're doing every day, every week, and every month. Here's a few examples of what I like to think about. Same with analyzing, analytics. You need to have you're going to need to have the quantitative data every day, every week, every month, to understand the health of your product and who your consumers are, and get better at it every day to help make a better product. You need to find the right balance of gut versus data. Don't go full on PM. Don't go full on designer. Balance each other out to select the right features to make players say, this game is really fun. I'd play it every day if I could. I'd definitely buy it for a deal. Man, I can't wait to play it and tell my friends, right? So with that, there's Humphreys. I'm going to pause. Questions, comments. Thanks, everybody. Just got through it. Hauled butt through a little bit of it. But I'm going to pause there. So, Andrew, if you want to jump back on.
Definitely, because we do have a lot of questions just piling up here.
Uh-oh.
You've raised some interest and curiosities, Mike, so this is perfect. Now, I will take it just randomly. So basically, they popped around the entire presentation.
And I'll try to be short about it, because just to be respectful of everybody's time.
Perfect. Now, one of them is, how much time would you recommend you should give to yourself to build and play a prototype of your game, try out the mechanics and prove the core mechanics and so on?
1 month.
1 month.
Yeah, so I like, so depending, so for, if we're saying prototype, I generally like to take a month for a prototype to get something out that feels really good. So it'll take about 1 week to create a design, 1 week to implement it into some playable form. So be it as a rough prototype inside of Unity as a gray box, or inside of a paper prototype. I really love paper prototypes, or a combination of paper prototypes, where I use playing cards, I use Excel, and I use dice. Dice for a randomization element, cards for an instantiation element with a little bit of random. So think of that as like your characters, your items, whatever, right? And then you use the logic system of Excel. So I find by the end of that, if you need to get it out by roughly like week 3, get feedback from your friends and family, make sure that at least 4 people who are your core demographic really like it, and then sequence it. So I would say by then, if you got to get something a little bit more polished, give yourself roughly, I would say 1 to 3 months, depending upon how deep and big the game is. But try to check yourself. Don't rat hole on it too much. Don't pull a Maxis and take forever to like design something that's going to take like 5 years of design, right? Like get it out, show it to players, right? So I roughly like to take between 1 to 3 months, generally a little bit on the shorter side of things.
Cool. Great, thanks for sharing that. The other one is, can you add different game planes, mechanics, interface in one game?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what we do anyways, right? So when
Perfect.
you're thinking about the 70-20-10, right? It's think about when you're say, let's take a racing game. So 70% is I'm going to race, right? 20% is I'm going to go look at my competitors to see, I'm going to make a game like Need for Speed or Asphalt or whatever, something like that. I'm going to see, okay, what are they doing really well? What don't they do so good? Right? So maybe it's their multiplayer isn't very good for that instance, or maybe the customization isn't very good, but there's one motivation that the players have identified, 1 to 3 motivations the players have identified inside of their comments. We're going to take that and like really evolve the product. Then from there, right? So to select between 1 and 3, from there, select an innovation. Look cross-domain, very, very good to go take other mechanics and mash them together, because that's where innovation really comes from. It may not work for the one that you put it on, but think about springboarding from it and be open to shifting what that innovation is. So case in point, go into a racing game here. Let's pull one from, I'm just going to pull one out. So I'm going to make a racing game that is also a sim builder. What does that look like, right? Who knows? Like, can you actually take the sim builder stuff and actually put it inside of the racing game, right? Maybe you're actually building. So then, right? So go look to see cross-domain, cross-product, and not just cross-product. Think outside of video games, right? Think about, so the more that you understand the world and how it works and all the fun different domains that exist, how can you bring some ideas that inspire something that's completely new that's never been there? Or go lift something from like a different game that you know is really, really good from a different genre and bring that into your game and see how it works, right? So that's how the Saga style map came in for Candy Crush, right? So it's like, hey, Candy Crush, great game that's been going forever, right? So they're like, I don't know how many years were they in, like 3 or 4 years in, 5 years in, making a great match 3 game. They're like, oh, what if we take the Mario World map and put it in with it? Oh my gosh, it works, right? And then now the term's called Candy Crush in it when you add a map to anything, right? Have fun. So yeah, that's an excellent example of taking something that's innovative from a different domain and bringing it in.
Wonderful. Now, a chicken or egg type of question. What's first, game mechanics or concept?
Yes. Just straight up, yes. Both, right? So there is no chicken and the egg, because what I found is it's not, we as humans think geometrically, that we're, at least for me, I think in like 20 different thoughts at once. And for me, how I write and how I create is I start from the middle, I start from the end, I start from the beginning. I literally start every different aspect just to get the idea out. So it's less about starting with concept. It's less about starting with an idea. It's less about starting with a mechanic. Yes, embrace them all. Get it out on paper, right? And then start rounding it out to create that concept, to create that prototype. Because sometimes prototypes inform the concept. Sometimes concepts inform the prototype. So it's messy, right? Creating art is messy. And so embrace that. and take that and just get it out is the big thing. Get it out, put it on paper, and start showing it to people.
Excellent. Now, I know we're just at the end, so one more. And
oh, that's okay. If we want to stick on for a little bit longer, I'm happy to as well.
1 minute, 2 minutes for this final question. Like, how do you organize the daily stand-ups with big team, plus 20 people? Like, try to keep it short and focused with this amount of people, and avoid people from zooming out, and so on. So, what's your advice?
Importantly, so it's 15. So a really good question. So how does that exact structure work with the? So I've implemented that structure with a team for that has been about 150, 200. And what I've really found is in that the senior chain, it kind of cascades down of start your stand-ups with each one of your different disciplines in the morning, and usually try to take all of your reporting to maximum an hour for the lead. So depending upon how deep your structure goes in, we generally take it. So it's about, what were we at? We're about 3 levels deep that report up. So take 15 minutes. So it's like you're going to have basically internal team scrum, right? I like to have a big board, right? Of like, where are you at? Where are you, like Kanban board? What are you doing for today? What are you doing next? Where are you going? It's like, is this approved? This is not, and allow the person to talk. Do not have the producer go through everybody's update. Have the individual person say what they're doing and where they're going to give them ownership of their work. From there, roll that up. Take 15 minutes. Gut check yourself. If you're talking to every day if you talk every day, you shouldn't need to update for more than 15 minutes, even at a team size up to 15 in an individual pod, 15 to 20 in an individual pod, right? Roll up, templatize, abstract, right? If you have more than that in one sitting group, there's too many people in that, it's an all hands. Break it up, roll it up to an upper pipeline, take that to summarize, and then take that as the lead to give to your director. Your director will take his lead information, roll that up into the executives, right? Executive and leadership team will take the director level reports and take that and roll that up to whomever needs to see it, be it stakeholders for the day or your bosses for the end of the week, right? So I like to have direct reports at 5, maybe between 5 to 7. I try to keep it to 5 because when you start going a little bit more than that, it's hard to know where everybody's going and what they're doing. So as much as people hate hierarchy and they love flat systems, I like hierarchy as long as you build it in the right way and specifically give time frames by which you need to operate in to ensure that machine continues to operate forward fast and efficiently.
Well, that sounds awesome. So thank you so much, Mike, for sharing that. We're a bit ahead of the time that we promised, so we don't want to keep you guys over the schedule for today. It was really insightful. And Mike, if you agree, I see people that are commenting, leaving us comments on Facebook, so maybe we can just catch up with them there and answering comments when...
Technically, I'm supposed to be in a meeting 4 minutes ago. So
4 minutes ago.
If everybody can if everybody can throw in comments inside of there or reach out directly, like hit me up on LinkedIn. Happy to chat. Everybody here, it's like, hey, we're all doing production, right? It's I've had the fortunate benefit to see lots of different companies, lots of different games, lots of different organizational structures, and everything's a little bit different, right? But for us as producers, we need to come together and make sure we share information not be ultimately competitive with each other, right? And actually open up to show what we're doing to help improve the business, to make you make better games, because I want to play those games, right?
Exactly.
Consumers want to play those games, and it's for you is to be team GSD to get that out so consumers can play it. So get rid of haters, get supporters, and get that done, right? So send me feedback. Love to hear from you.
Sounds perfect. Everyone is thanking you here on the chat. Great session. These are the kinds of comments that we are sharing. We'll follow up with some of the questions on the Facebook comments. Thank you so much, Mike, for sharing this. And with these good intentions, we say goodbye to everyone. Thank you for joining December Academy webinar. Thank you, Mike, again. It was wonderful. And
thanks,
everyone
everybody.
Stay safe.
All
Bye.
right. Have a good one. Bye, everybody.